Hi, I'm Ray McNeal. Welcome back to Good Global Vibes. We've asked the multimillionaire panel about freedom, and this is part 4 of 5. You have heard them speak from their heart about these things. So this week, it's a continuation. It's a continuation of just the utmost heartfelt discoveries that each one of you have been discovering each week by watching these. I've gotten more comments, more calls, more texts about this panel than anyone so far. So I know you're enjoying it. So please comment. We want to hear from you. You're important to us. You're important to everyone. All right. Anyway, here we go. Let's talk to them. Where would you like to have more emotional freedom?
Where I would like to go is two places. One, I'd like to find a community in the world that is intentional at the same level, that I don't have to deal with the street level issues anymore. I want to be around people that are highly intentional people and are up to big things and contributing and all that. That should be the normal for me. Like when I wake up, that's where I'm doing. And the other part is giving at the highest level. But first of all, I have very few talents. Okay, like maybe one for sure. At least that talent. Make as much difference with that talent as much as I can for the next part of my life. Now that I have survival taken care of, I don't really need to worry about the things I worried about the first 50 years. The second 50 years, I just want to give as much as possible. I think the blessings for me and the next level for me and the freedom for me would be just to do that until I'm spent. That would be freedom.
That was super inspirational, Avi. So thank you for sharing that, because I would like to be there for sure. So it's like this freedom of judgment of myself. I think this happens to a lot of people who maybe were poor or come from, a lot of trauma, and then you all of a sudden be successful. And then my identity of myself, like the way I see myself, is a little different than how other people see me. And there's like this gap. And I've just been in search, doing this work, doing personal development to try to narrow that gap. But then I realized maybe we're just always working on that, right? It's like when something amazing happens, I was like, oh gosh, is that me? Are they talking about me? Like, do I really deserve that? What is wrong with me? And I would like freedom from that, but I don't know if that's ever going to be possible, or that's something that I'm going to do for the rest of my life. But I'm committed to keep working on it.
So our next question is, what freedom do you enjoy as an American?
Excuse me, and Canadian. Okay.
Oh, I forgot, Avi.
What is going on?
Okay, you can share as a Canadian. Sorry about that.
Freedom as a Canadian. That's a good question. I don't usually pay much attention to it, but it's always when I travel the world and I come back to Canada, and I go, oh wow, things that I don't usually pay attention to, like when you want to shower, you go in and there's hot water. Whoa, cool. And then people are not going to shoot at you on the street, probably, and everything's clean, and there's food everywhere, and like the regular stuff. You get channels, and you got internet, and you don't even think about it. Lots of space, and overall, really, there's everything here. There's really everything here. The one thing is, the weather, and luckily I can get out of here in the winter and go to Costa Rica.
So what freedom do you enjoy as an American?
I can relate it to a story, quick one. Many, many years ago, I was hired to direct a series of projects in India. And I was directing racing commercials for Michelin tires and the Madras rubber factories. And when I went to Madras, at one point on the way to the racetrack, we drove by the Madras slums. And I asked them to stop the car, and I had like a security guy and a driver, and they declined. And I pulled rank and made them stop the car. I saw this thing that was almost impossible to describe because, I'd seen homelessness and bums, and, I'd seen, people that were destitute and living in trailers, and, kids even in America that didn't have, proper food or clothes, but I had never seen an ocean of poverty. And it's an ocean. It's as far as you can see. It's as wide and as deep as an ocean. It's millions of people living in poverty. And this event happened that seared into my mind, which was while I was standing there, and without getting into all the specifics, a child was killed by a car. And they had to like remove the child from the wheel well, and what happened. And then the owner of that car just drove away. And they immediately surrounded this child with stones in a circle. And then they sent all the little children out, and they were all crippled, had little crippled hands. And they were begging for money from me because I was like the big, dumb white guy standing there witnessing all this. And I took out all the rupees and the money I had, and I kind of threw it, and I was kind of dragged and thrown back in the car, and we took off. And this always stayed with me. One of the simple questions I asked was, why did they put the stones around the child? And they said, well, because one, to market, and two, because it's a very good place for the other children to come and now beg for money. And then I said, and why were they all crippled? And they said, they're not crippled. And I said, well, but they're all had crippled hands. And they said, no, their parents break their hands to make them look like cripples so they'll get more money when they beg. That reality took a long time to sink in. And I've never forgotten that, and some other events, some even more intense from my time in India. And so as an American, one of the things that I got when I was in India was the depth of my own arrogance, the depth of my own unconsciousness, the depth of how good I have it compared to so much of the world, and things that I take for every day granted. As our illustrious Canadian was just saying, hot water, even if I don't like it, clean water from the tap that I can drink, all the food and electricity and things that I need are present. And so as an American, there is this, and there are other places in the world too, but for the most part here, so many things that we just assume are the status quo are not that way for much of the world, for billions of people. So I try to find myself in this present moment, and constantly being in gratitude for all that I do have, and all of the gifts that are present for me, here in this country, even as I wrestle with the depth of unconsciousness that we still have here. But beyond that, there is a freedom to express oneself and to create and to put content out in the world, and to have the opportunity, if one chooses, to make a difference. And I think that that's what I really appreciate about America, is my opportunity to do that, and to create the movies and the music and the television, and to be able to even much of what I would train and develop and coach in some arenas would be would be banned in other countries. So there's a freedom there to authentically communicate. I feel a sense of hope and belief, and the spirit of all people in this country for what's possible for the future, for my children and the rest of the children of this world. And I believe that is deeply and continues to be possible from this country.
Thank you for reminding us to be grateful. So I'm a first generation immigrant. I came to the US when I was 13. I became a citizen in college. But my family also lived for a long time in the South Pacific in the Solomon Islands. And it's a third world country, like no hospitals, no school. So my mom sent me here for school. So I totally agree with you. I think that the freedom in America really is the opportunity. Because if I were still living there, if I were still living in Taiwan with my grandparents, I may not have the opportunity to start my own business, make a difference for people, have access to the work, and to have the access to the people and the resources. So that was like a really nice reminder for me too, to be grateful every day.
Thank you, Alice.
When I think about freedom and America in the same sentence, I have mixed emotions as it relates to freedom. It gets back to the very first question: what is freedom? So I feel very fortunate to have had the journey that I've had and have experienced life that I had freedom, knowing that it's a social construct. When we put it in collapse freedom in America, and then I think about all those that my ancestors as it relates to freedom. When I think about underrepresented communities as it relates to freedom, as I look at it from America as a systems design, that the social things that we see are products of a design, and that the design wasn't originally intended for freedom, although they're words like freedom, but a system does what it's designed to do. So I stand for dignity and compassion for myself and all human beings. And when I look at indigenous cultures, when I look at systemic issues, yes, there's freedom. Then there's places where there's not freedom. Just like inside of me, there's places that are free, and there are places that I discover aren't free. I have a 6-year-old, and when I see her do the splits and like run, jump, do a cartwheel, jump into a split, I recognize I don't have that freedom with my limbs. So when we're able to see what others can do with their freedom, at least for myself, it allows me to recognize where there may be, if I look at it from this lens, where there may be a lack of freedom. And so as that relates to America, and I'm very fortunate, and I've been $75,000 in debt. I remember I was in college, and I had been working on music, whatever. I don't know what I was doing, studying or whatever, and all the restaurants closed, and I didn't have any food. I remember I was on the 18th floor in the dorm, and it was like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Everything had shut down. And I remember when I went to sleep hungry on my own doing, I looked at that moment and said, there are people that are experiencing what I'm feeling right now that don't have the choice to wake up in the morning and go to the grocery store. And that's happening right now in America. Are we free?
I'm amazed every time at their answers. Wasn't that incredible? Each week, it's just so incredible. And I know you love it too, because I've had so many, like I said in the intro, I've had so many calls and texts and comments. And, this is only episode 4. You still have one more with this panel of multimillionaires. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing it with your friends. Until next time, aloha.